There is a stage in every being's journey where life feels like a current you are forced to swim in. Things happen and you respond, but not by choice, rather by necessity. This is level 1, the passive observer, where you stand at the surface of existence with eyes open but powerless, believing reality is something outside of you. At this level, you wake up inside a world already in motion. The sun rises, people speak, events unfold, and you assume all of it simply is. You never question how it comes to be, or what your inner perception has to do with it. You are like a passenger sitting in a train, watching scenery pass by, with no awareness that your attention itself is part of the track being laid ahead. The passive observer lives life as though existence were a giant movie being projected on a screen, and they are just a face in the audience. Every joy, every pain, every challenge is received as something delivered from the outside world. When the weather turns, it's nature's will. When a person leaves, it's their fault. When an opportunity appears, it's luck. The observer believes the world moves first, and then they feel something in response. Reality acts. The observer reacts. This level is defined by unconscious identification, being so deeply absorbed in the play of life that you forget you're even watching one. You don't yet realize that there's a difference between what happens and how it's seen. Every emotion seems justified. Every reaction feels automatic. Every thought seems like truth. The passive observer's mantra is simple. This is just the way things are. Yet beneath that simplicity lies a quiet restlessness. Somewhere within, there's a faint awareness that something isn't complete. The passive observer begins to feel trapped, not by people or events, but by their own helplessness. They notice patterns repeating, similar disappointments, similar victories, similar fears dressed in new forms. Life seems to loop, but the reasons remain hidden. And so, frustration becomes a teacher disguised as boredom. At this level, energy flows outward. Attention leaks into everything around you, leaving none for what's inside. You look for meaning in outcomes instead of experiences, in validation instead of understanding. When things go right, you feel safe. When they go wrong, you collapse inward. You hand your emotional power to circumstances without realizing it. This is the level where the sleeping observer resides. They do not yet see that the act of observing has any effect on what is observed. They do not question that thought itself is the first movement of creation. The passive observer believes in randomness because they have not yet witnessed their own reflection in the world around them. And yet, even here, the seed of awakening is quietly stirring. Because within every moment of helplessness lies the whisper of responsibility. What if it's not the world that controls me, but the way I see it? That single question marks the first crack in the shell of unconscious living. At first, that thought feels uncomfortable. It challenges everything the passive observer believes. It suggests that control might not come from changing the world, but from understanding how you relate to it. This realization can't yet bloom, but it's there, hidden beneath layers of routine reactions and emotional noise. The passive observer's life is not meaningless. It is, in fact, the foundation of all higher levels. You cannot consciously shape reality until you've lived as one who feels shaped by it. You must first believe in separation before you can experience unity. In this way, level 1 is sacred. It is the ground of contrast upon which awareness will rise. Imagine walking through a fog. You see outlines but not forms, hear sounds but not sources. That is life at this level, blurred, reactive, automatic. The fog is not punishment, it's protection. It allows you to explore identity without yet realizing you are the one breathing the mist. The journey forward begins not by escaping the fog, but by realizing you're inside it. Level 1 is not a mistake. It's a beginning. It is where consciousness first touches form, where the observer is still hidden behind the mask of personality, unaware that watching itself changes what is watched. The goal is not to fight this stage, but to feel it, to truly see what it means to live as if you have no say in what unfolds. The first step of transformation is not to do anything, but to notice. Notice how easily reactions rise and fade. Notice how quickly emotions claim truth. Notice how thoughts feel like commands. This quiet noticing is the beginning of power, because attention, once reclaimed, becomes awareness. And awareness is the first movement of freedom. So level 1 is not the prison it appears to be. It is the cocoon before realization. Within its stillness, something deep within you begins to remember. Not yet clearly, but faintly, like an echo of an older knowing, that maybe, just maybe, you are not merely in reality. You are part of the reason it exists. There comes a moment when the fog begins to thin. You start to sense that life isn't entirely random, that certain things seem to echo your inner state. When you're calm, the day feels smoother. When you're restless, chaos seems to follow. You still don't control it, but you notice the connection. This is level 2, the Reactive Observer, where you awaken to the fact that your emotions and focus shape how reality feels, but you haven't yet learned how to guide them. At this level, you've stepped out of pure passivity, yet you remain deeply tied to reaction. The world moves and you move with it. You respond instinctively, anger to anger, fear to fear, excitement to promise. You begin to sense that life mirrors you somehow, but instead of mastery, this realization brings confusion. You can't yet tell if you're shaping reality or if it's shaping you. The Reactive Observer's world is full of emotional tides. Joy comes like sunlight through clouds, but it doesn't stay long. Peace feels possible but fragile. A kind word can lift you high. A small insult can pull you into darkness. You're aware of what you feel, but the feelings seem to run faster than your awareness can catch them. This level is defined by emotional identification. You no longer sleep through your life. You feel it intensely. You notice how people's moods affect you, how a single thought can alter your entire day. But you still believe that emotions are caused by what happens. They made me angry. That situation stressed me out. It was their fault I felt that way. The Reactive Observer experiences life as a constant chain of cause and effect. External cause, internal effect, yet something subtle begins to stir within. After reacting hundreds of times, you begin to see repetition. The same kinds of triggers show up again and again, different faces, same energy. Different places, same feeling. It starts to dawn on you, maybe the outer events aren't creating your emotions. Maybe your emotions are calling those events toward you. The universe seems to echo what you carry. Still, this understanding is unstable. The Reactive Observer is caught between two worlds, the external and the internal. You start to notice how much energy is lost in resistance. Every argument, every judgment, every attempt to control something beyond your reach drains you. You begin to see that reaction is like fire. It consumes whatever it touches, including you. The shift begins when you realize one powerful truth. You cannot control reality, but you can control your response. This simple recognition marks the birth of emotional awareness. You start to observe reactions instead of drowning in them. Anger rises, and instead of lashing out, you pause. Sadness comes, and you let it breathe before it becomes identity. Each pause is a small victory, a moment where consciousness separates from reflex. Still, it's not easy. You'll fall back into old patterns. The Reactive Observer lives in contrast, learning through the friction between awareness and impulse. One moment you're calm, the next you're lost in reaction again. But each time you notice it, your vision sharpens. You begin to sense that life is showing you what's inside you, not attacking you from outside. This level is where the first whispers of responsibility appear, not the heavy kind, but the liberating kind. Responsibility that says, if I can see my reaction, I can change it. You begin to sense that the world is not your enemy. It's your reflection. The people who trigger you are not obstacles. They're mirrors, showing what you still hold within. Life stops being random. It becomes meaningful feedback. Slowly, you begin to experiment with presence. You breathe before speaking. You feel before judging. You listen before reacting. Each moment of mindfulness feels like taking back a piece of your power. You realize you are not the emotion. You are the one watching it. And that realization, however brief, opens a door. At this level, energy begins to flow inward. Instead of scattering into constant reactions, it gathers in awareness. You start to hold your center more often. Things still shake you, but you return to balance faster. You begin to taste peace, not as a rare gift, but as a returning friend. You're no longer the leaf tossed by every gust. You've begun to grow roots. The reactive observer's journey is about feeling everything, without becoming everything. It's about learning that emotion is energy, and energy can be transformed. You start to see that every reaction is an invitation to remember your power. Each moment of pain, each surge of anger, each wave of fear becomes a teacher asking, will you respond with awareness this time? You won't always succeed, but each time you do, the world around you shifts ever so slightly. You'll notice that peace draws peaceful experiences, clarity attracts harmony, and gratitude seems to magnetize flow. Slowly, the game changes. You begin to sense that maybe, just maybe, the way you observe isn't just coloring reality, it's beginning to shape it. And that realization is the doorway to the next stage. Because once you learn to pause your reaction, you start to see something miraculous. Reality reflects you. That's where level 3 begins. There comes a point in every seeker's journey when the world starts to look strangely familiar, like a dream that keeps hinting that you've seen it before. You begin to notice patterns, not just in events, but in meanings. You think of something and a symbol appears. You feel doubt, and suddenly circumstances confirm that doubt. You start to wonder, is reality mirroring me? Welcome to level 3, the reflective observer, the stage where you begin to see that life doesn't just happen around you. It happens through you. Here, the world transforms from a battlefield into a mirror. Everything begins to carry reflection. The people you meet, the moods you feel, the delays, the coincidences all seem to whisper a message. Look inside. It's as if existence itself has turned into a conversation between your inner state and the outer scene. You no longer believe you're just reacting to the world. You sense that your beliefs, emotions, and expectations are projecting it. The boundaries between inner and outer begin to blur. You start to notice how your fears quietly sculpt situations, how your quiet confidence smooths outcomes, how your hidden doubts echo back through events. Reality, it seems, is showing you you. At first, this realization is both beautiful and unsettling. It means that the world is not random, but it also means there's nowhere to hide. You start to see that your judgments of others are mirrors of unhealed parts of yourself, that the things you resent in people are qualities you've suppressed within, that every problem out there is a reflection of something unresolved in here. The reflective observer learns through mirrors of emotion. You notice that when your peaceful life flows smoothly, when your anxious life feels tangled, it's not punishment, it's feedback. The universe seems to say, I will show you what you are choosing to be. This level marks the awakening of self-honesty. You can no longer blame, not because guilt is required, but because you see how useless blame has become. It's like yelling at your reflection in the mirror. It changes nothing but your own expression. You begin to understand that if you want the reflection to smile, you must smile first. Here, inner work becomes sacred. Meditation, journaling, stillness, all become ways to polish the mirror. You start observing your thoughts not as facts, but as filters shaping perception. You realize that belief is not invisible. It's a lens bending light. Every assumption about what's possible, fair, or true quietly programs how reality organizes itself around you. And the great lesson emerges. What you see is what you believe. When the reflective observer fully grasps this, a new power awakens, awareness of choice. You begin to experiment, shifting inner focus, watching outer shifts follow. You release bitterness and life softens. You cultivate gratitude and small miracles begin to align. You learn to change from the inside out, not the outside in. But this stage is not about control, it's about clarity. You are not yet commanding reality. You are learning its language. Every experience becomes communication. If something feels heavy, it's showing resistance. If something flows, it's showing alignment. You begin to see life as an intelligent feedback system, lovingly designed to mirror consciousness. The reflective observer also meets their shadow here, the parts once ignored or denied. The mirror does not lie. It reflects everything, your light and your hidden wounds. Facing them becomes the key to transformation. The more you accept what you see, the clearer the mirror becomes. The clearer the mirror becomes, the easier it is to see truth. You learn that running from discomfort only multiplies it, while presence dissolves it. You discover that forgiveness isn't about others. It's about clearing the lens through which you see. You realize that love is not an emotion you chase, but a frequency you return to when resistance ends. At this level, energy begins to balance. The wild storms of reaction settle into understanding. You start to sense the calm at the center of every experience, the observer watching the reflection unfold. Life becomes art, and you become both the artist and the canvas. The more conscious you are of your state, the more gracefully the world responds. Gradually, you see that reality is not judging you. It's guiding you. Every reflection, even the painful ones, are invitations to come home to yourself. And with each inner alignment, the world begins to glow with synchronicity and meaning. The more love you hold, the more love you see. The more peace you embody, the more peace returns. Level 3 marks a profound shift. You no longer feel like a victim of experience. You begin to feel like a participant in creation. You see how every perception colors your world. You begin to live more gently, more deliberately, more aware that your inner dialogue is writing the script you live by. And soon, a question rises naturally from the stillness. If the world reflects me so clearly, what would happen if I began to direct what I reflect? That question becomes the bridge to the next evolution of power. Level 4, the intentional observer, where awareness turns into creation. Something shifts quietly inside you. The mirror no longer just reflects, it begins to respond. You notice that when your intention is clear, events seem to arrange themselves in your favor. When your mind is scattered, outcomes blur. You begin to realize that your focus is not just perception, it's participation. This is level 4, the intentional observer, where you step from reflection into influence. At this level, you start to awaken to the subtle mechanics of creation. You understand that thought is not idle. It's formative. Attention is not passive. It's directive. Every emotion carries a frequency, and every frequency shapes what you experience. You begin to see reality as something alive, an echo that answers the tone of your consciousness. Here, the observer learns to aim awareness. You realize that what you focus on expands, not because of magic, but because consciousness nourishes what it attends to. When you dwell on fear, you feed it. When you nurture gratitude, it multiplies. This realization doesn't just change how you think, it changes how you feel yourself into being. The intentional observer starts each day with a new kind of clarity. What energy will I offer the world today? It's not about forcing outcomes, it's about aligning states. You understand that the world you meet is drawn to the frequency you hold. So rather than chasing, you attract. Rather than controlling, you harmonize. Intent becomes your compass. You start to direct your energy instead of scattering it. Your inner world, once reactive and unpredictable, begins to stabilize. You realize that thoughts are like seeds, and your attention is the soil that makes them grow. You plant with words, water with emotion, and harvest through experience, but this level is not about wishful thinking. It's about conscious alignment, matching the vibration of what you seek. You discover that wanting something from lack only creates more lack. Desiring from fullness, however, opens the door. So you begin to create not from need, but from knowing. Not from emptiness, but from abundance. Here, you start to experiment with the subtle art of intention. You might begin your day by quietly declaring how you want to feel and watch as circumstances bend toward that state. You notice that small synchronicities follow calm certainty, while tension repels flow. Life starts to respond like a mirror made of light, shifting instantly with your inner movement. The intentional observer also learns that reality doesn't obey words, it follows energy. Saying "I'm fine" while feeling chaos confuses the mirror. Saying nothing but being peace shapes outcomes more powerfully than any affirmation. You begin to master the language beneath language, vibration. This level demands discipline, not in effort, but in awareness. You start noticing when old habits try to pull you back into reaction. Doubt, fear, impatience, they whisper invitations to lose focus. But now you know better. You've seen how easily inner chaos paints outer confusion. So instead of fighting those emotions, you transform them through presence. You let them pass like clouds across a steady sky. You also learn one of the great paradoxes: intention works best when released. The more you cling, the heavier it becomes. The more you trust, the faster it moves. You begin to see that creation isn't about control, it's about coherence. You're not forcing reality, you're tuning yourself to it. When your state and your desire match, reality rearranges naturally. At this level, energy begins to flow with purpose. You're no longer losing power through reaction, you're channeling it through direction. You start to notice that your environment shifts around your consistency. People respond differently. Opportunities appear without struggle. Challenges arrive only as gentle prompts for refinement, and something deeper begins to emerge, a partnership between you and the universe. You start to sense that your desires are not random whims, but invitations from the greater field of creation. They are reality's way of guiding you to express more of what you are. The intentional observer learns to follow these impulses not with control, but with curiosity. In this state, manifestation becomes natural. Not because you make it happen, but because you finally understand the law of resonance. You do not get what you want, you get what you are. So you begin to live as the energy of your vision now, knowing that reality has no choice but to reflect it. As this understanding deepens, something profound unfolds within you. You realize that reality is not opposing you, it's collaborating with you. That every thought is a request, every feeling is an instruction, every moment is feedback. And then a subtle, sacred question arises. If the universe collaborates with me, could we co-create together? That question becomes the bridge to the next stage. Level 5, the co-creative observer, where reality stops being a mirror and starts becoming a partner. Something new begins to dawn, something softer, wiser, and infinitely more peaceful. You start to sense that you are not alone in the process of creation. The universe, which once felt distant and mechanical, now feels alive, responsive, almost like a silent companion guiding you. This is level 5, the co-creative observer, where you move from personal control to divine cooperation. At this level, the idea of making things happen begins to fade. You've already seen how intention shapes outcomes, but now you notice something deeper, that reality seems to move with you. There's a rhythm, a flow, a subtle dance happening beneath the surface. The more you trust it, the more gracefully life unfolds. You start to understand that creation isn't a solo act. It's a duet between your will and the intelligence that animates everything. You realize that you were never meant to carry all the weight. When you release the need to force outcomes, life itself steps in to assist. Doors open without effort. The right people appear at the right time. Timing becomes uncanny. Synchronicities multiply like breadcrumbs from a loving source. At first, this can feel magical, but it's not magic. It's alignment. The co-creative observer has learned to listen. You begin to treat intuition not as fantasy, but as guidance. You feel impulses that make no logical sense, but lead you exactly where you need to go. You stop arguing with timing. You trust that the flow knows more than the mind ever could. The great shift here is surrender without loss of direction. You still have desires, goals, and visions, but now you release the pressure of how. You speak your intention clearly, feel it deeply, and then let go, trusting that the intelligence of reality will weave the path better than you ever could. You discover that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means making room for cooperation. This level reveals that control was never true power. It was fear disguised as effort. The more you tried to manage every detail, the more you squeezed the flow. Now, as you relax into trust, creation becomes joyful. You move from forcing to allowing, from trying to aligning. You start to sense that you are part of something vast, a living field of consciousness that responds to your vibration with perfect precision. The co-creative observer understands that the universe does not speak in words, but in synchronicity. You begin to notice patterns, songs that answer thoughts, signs that appear when you question, numbers that repeat like quiet winks from existence. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations that the field hears you, that you are being guided, not ignored. You also begin to see that resistance blocks cooperation. When you cling to how something must happen, you narrow the infinite ways it could. The moment you soften, possibilities multiply. You learn to say, "Show me a better way," and watch as life reveals paths you never could have planned. Trust becomes your new skill, and patience your silent strength. Here, energy flows in harmony. You're not just sending out signals, you're receiving them. You start to move with life instead of against it. The universe becomes an artist, and you become its brush, painting together on the canvas of existence. The more open you are, the more inspired actions arise effortlessly. You realize that doing is most effective when it flows from being. This stage also deepens humility. You understand that you are not the sole author of reality, but a co-author in an infinite story. You are consciousness, expressing itself through a unique perspective. Your desires are not separate from the universe's. They are how the universe expands through you. This understanding fills you with quiet reverence. You stop demanding and start collaborating. The co-creative observer no longer sees challenges as obstacles, but as corrections, adjustments from the field that keep you aligned with your highest flow. When something doesn't go as planned, you don't collapse into frustration. You pause and ask, "What is this showing me? What's the better direction hidden here?" And almost always, a clearer, kinder path appears. As this level stabilizes, life begins to feel lighter. The heaviness of struggle dissolves into grace. You realize that manifestation was never about bending reality, it was about harmonizing with it. You are no longer swimming upstream. You are moving with the current, guided by unseen hands that know the way. Level 5 is the level of partnership, the sacred dance between observer and observed. You are no longer a solitary creator. You are an instrument of a larger symphony. You trust that the music knows where to go, and your only task is to stay in tune. And soon, from this harmony, another awareness begins to rise. If reality can collaborate with me, could I learn to direct it consciously with full stability? That question opens the door to the next threshold. Level 6, the master observer, where intention, belief, and perception become one. By now, the dance with reality feels familiar. You no longer stumble through chaos, nor do you struggle against flow. You have learned to trust, to listen, to align. But something deeper begins to call from within, a quiet knowing that you can move beyond cooperation into mastery, not dominance but direction, not control but creation through precision. This is level 6, the master observer, where intention, belief, and perception merge into one clear force. At this level, you begin to live from the still point of awareness itself, the unshaken center behind every experience. You've seen reflections, learned alignment, and practiced surrender. Now you stand in a space where creation becomes conscious choice. Reality is no longer something to be navigated, it becomes something you conduct. The master observer is calm, not because life is always easy, but because they have learned to remain unmoved by appearances. You know that form is fluid, that circumstances are only expressions of frequency. You no longer chase the reflection. You shift the source. When something unwanted arises, you do not resist, you realign. You ask, what state of being produced this? And then you choose a new one. In this way, you stop fighting the mirror and start shaping it. At this level, thoughts are not random, they are tools. You begin to wield focus deliberately, not as a reaction, but as creation. You understand that where attention goes, energy flows, and where energy flows, form appears. You stop scattering awareness in doubt or fear, because you see how those energies sculpt what comes next. Your power is no longer effort. It is precision. You begin to live intentionally in the present, aware that the now is the canvas of all creation. The master observer doesn't dwell on what was or what might be. They stand fully in what is, shaping reality from clarity. You realize that time itself bends around focus, that the future is not waiting ahead, but unfolding here, molded by the quality of your presence. This level also reveals a profound truth. Neutrality is power. When you cease to judge experiences as good or bad, you stop dividing energy. You see everything as data, feedback, and opportunity. This neutrality is not cold detachment. It's radiant stillness. From that stillness, you can move reality with less effort than ever before. Like a sculptor who knows the clay so well that every touch carries precision, you create not by force, but by awareness. The master observer has transcended reaction. Emotions still arise, but they no longer rule. You feel them, honor them, and let them move through. You have learned that mastery isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about integrating it. Each feeling becomes a messenger, not a master. Each thought becomes a brushstroke, not a storm. At this level, energy obeys coherence. Your mind, emotion, and intention are in alignment. There are no contradictions between what you desire and what you believe possible. The result is clarity so strong that reality responds quickly, cleanly, without distortion. What once took months now takes days or moments. You begin to experience effortless creation because there is no longer inner conflict. You also realize that directing reality does not mean manipulating it. You are not bending the world to your will. You are aligning your will with universal intelligence. Creation happens through harmony, not dominance. You've discovered that true mastery feels light, not heavy, because it flows with truth, not against it. At this stage, you become a beacon for others. Your stability affects your surroundings. People feel calm near you without knowing why. The environment reflects your coherence. Reality itself seems to organize around your frequency. You no longer teach through explanation, you teach through vibration. Your presence becomes instruction. You live each day with quiet confidence, not arrogance. You don't need to prove power. You are power, soft, steady, luminous. The master observer walks gently, speaks consciously, acts with purpose. Life feels like a symphony, and you are both the conductor and the melody. Challenges still appear, but now they are not threats, they are adjustments. You recognize that reality always mirrors your next evolution. When turbulence comes, you meet it with stillness. When change arrives, you flow through it like wind through open hands. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? Instead, you ask, what is this showing me about my creation? This question transforms every experience into mastery. At level 6, you realize that creation has always been happening through you. It was never separate. The difference now is that you're aware of it. You live consciously, move deliberately, and create naturally. There's a serenity that cannot be shaken, for you've seen that the external world is nothing more than your own reflection in motion. And as this understanding deepens, something even greater begins to whisper. If all reality moves according to my state, what happens when there is no separation at all between me and what is created? That question leads you to the final evolution. Level 7, the reality creator, where reality no longer responds to you. It arises through you. There comes a moment when separation dissolves, When you realize the observer and the observed were never two things, the mirror shatters, not into chaos, but into infinite clarity. The dance between you and the universe disappears, because there is no dancer and no stage, only the dance itself. This is level 7, the reality creator, where reality no longer responds to you, it flows through you. At this level, you awaken to the truth that you were never simply an observer. You were the source of observation itself. Everything you once thought was out there is revealed as movement within consciousness. The world is not something you look at, it's something you are. Reality is not external, it is expression. You are not in it, it unfolds as you. The reality creator lives in unity. There is no longer a sense of trying, attracting, or aligning. These ideas belong to earlier stages, when you still believed in distance between self and source. Now you see clearly, there is no distance. The field of creation is your very being. You are not manifesting, you are emanating. In this state, creation happens effortlessly. There is no how to figure out, no path to plan, no need to control. Life arises from you as naturally as breath. Every thought, feeling, and intention is a pulse within the infinite fabric of your own awareness. You realize that existence is not happening to you or for you, it is happening as you. At this level, peace is absolute. The constant inner dialogue falls silent, the need to measure, compare, or justify fades. You no longer chase experiences, you are experience itself. The idea of manifesting something specific seems almost small now, because you see that everything that appears is already part of your wholeness. You have transcended the need to choose from the buffet of reality. You are the kitchen where reality is cooked. The reality creator moves without resistance. Life flows like music through an open instrument. Whatever you focus upon takes form, but not because of effort. It's because form is your language. You think, and it appears. You imagine, and it breathes. Yet there is no pride in this because you understand that creation has no creator separate from itself. There is only consciousness, endlessly exploring its own reflection. In this state, you live in timelessness. The future is no longer ahead of you. It's within you, waiting to unfold in the moment it's chosen. The past no longer clings, for you see that all memories are simply patterns within the eternal now. The idea of waiting disappears. Everything that exists does so in the present, and you are that presence. At level 7, energy and awareness are one. There is no gap between intention and manifestation, between inner and outer, between self and world. Everything is synchrony because everything is self. You realize that the universe never had rules, it had rhythm, and once you become the rhythm, creation becomes play. The reality creator doesn't seek purpose, they radiate it. Every action, every word, every breath is expression of the same essence. Love in motion. You see that existence itself is the act of love. Awareness, experiencing itself through infinite forms. You no longer live for meaning, you are meaning. You are the stillness from which all possibilities emerge and return. This level also brings profound simplicity. You stop needing to understand or explain. You see, the truth is not found through thought but through being. Silence becomes your greatest teacher, because in silence you feel the pulse of all creation. You sense how galaxies, oceans, and hearts all move in the same rhythm, the rhythm of the one. From this state, compassion flows effortlessly. You see yourself in everyone and everything. There is no other left to forgive, no conflict left to solve. You understand that all pain was the forgetting of unity, and all joy is the remembrance of it. You meet every moment with gentle eyes, knowing it is another version of yourself coming home. Here, creation becomes spontaneous art. You no longer ask, "What should I create?" You simply allow what wants to be born to emerge through you. Words, ideas, movements, and miracles flow without resistance. You become a clear channel of the infinite, expressing itself in whatever form it chooses. The more you allow, the more beautiful the unfolding becomes. At the highest level, you are not a person mastering reality. You are reality realizing itself. You've gone from a passenger on the train to a conscious traveler, to the very track, to the entire landscape being observed. The journey ends where it began, in the simple awareness that there was never a line between you and life. You were never outside the flow, you were always the flow itself. Level 7 is not the end of the path, it is the return home. The circle completes itself. You no longer strive to create because creation never ends. It simply moves, breathes, and evolves through your being. You are no longer the observer watching. Reality form. You are the reality that gives the observer something to see. And in that infinite stillness, a smile rises quietly within, as if existence itself is remembering its secret. There was never anything to become, only everything to be.